Hi YouTube, it's Remrux or RemRx, and today we're going to be reacting to Deltarune chapters 3 and 4 just changed everything. So I know a lot of people have been super excited to see what cammyboiG has to say about these new chapters since a lot of their theories got disproven, so I'm excited to see what he has to say. So yeah, definitely go check him out and let's just dive right into it.
What's up, you little freaks? Deltarune chapters 3 and 4 just came out. I played them, you most likely played them, and as a result, we are changed people. These chapters
Yeah,
were
I definitely
such a
am changed.
surprise in the best way possible, and really made it clear that we did not know shit about this game 2 weeks ago. And I'm not just talking about the major theories that were disproven, but the very structure of the game, the things we assumed were no-brainers, turned out not to be true at all.
Yeah,
It's a completely new world out there. So I just wanted to take some time and talk with you guys about it. I haven't written a script for this video, I'm just sort of gonna ramble at my microphone for a while, so without further ado, let's just talk.
that's fair.
So I wanted to start with my thoughts on chapter
Yeah, that's very fair. I ramble a lot too, so don't worry.
3, and 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 how funny it is that 5 minutes into this fucking chapter, Ralsei looks at the camera and says, cammyboiG, I am a darkener. In all
Yeah,
seriousness, I really don't think my Ralsei theory has suffered that much as a result of these chapters. I still think it's pretty solid, but I'm gonna save the section for where I think my theories stand now in the current zeitgeist till the end of the video. But what I love so much about the conversation that Ralsei and Susie have at the beginning of chapter 3 is that it takes Susie to a place that a lot of us didn't think she would go until like the end game.
yeah, because in chapter 2, Susie was like so like not in the know of anything. I think a lot of people like guessed that like she wasn't going to know until the end of the story, and that Rousey would have played this facade for longer than he did, but he gave in and told her right away. So
The fact that Susie knows what Darkners are now, and there's no question about it at this point in the narrative, is so refreshing. I think a lot of us were under the assumption that Susie finally learning that all of her Darkner friends weren't real and none of the adventures were real was going to be sort of an endgame revelation for Susie, and it would be devastating for her. Like, we thought it was an arc that would build up to the end. And it's so nice that this reveal has gotten out of the way, and so Susie doesn't feel like a dumbass for the sake of the narrative anymore. Having her face this revelation this early on is going to leave so much more room for her character to develop over the course of the game, and it
yeah,
already has, especially in Chapter 4, and in regards to her relationship with the Darkners and the Prophecy, and also the way it digs into Ralsei at the core of who he is really fantastic as well. We're really starting to delve into his lack of self-worth and his
yeah. I'm glad we got to explore more of Rousey's character in chapter 3 and 4, and definitely chapter 4. I love the scene where like Susie crashes out on Rousey for not telling them anything. And Rousey's response was so sad, but I don't know. I love that ending of chapter 4 start. I didn't like that much, but like at the end, I was definitely there for it. So
sense of self, his own personality and opinions are starting to bud. Anyway, in the middle of this like beautiful character moment that Ralsei and Susie have together, that cutscene plays where Ralsei is explaining how Darkners are really objects, and out of fucking nowhere, again, first 5 minutes in the chapter, Friend appears on screen.
I
But
know that
Friend
was
isn't just a
crazy.
normal cat, it's fucking Endogeny from Undertale.
Yeah, literally.
I still don't know what to make of this, and I'm so flabbergasted by it. I can't stop thinking about it. And it's so bizarre to me how we don't have any concrete theories or answers about why this thing was on screen. Friend appears as it's similarly shaped to Endogeny. It has 5 legs with cat silhouettes that make up the in-between of the legs, very similar to Endogeny, but it's black instead of white. And it appears to be a cat instead of a dog.
Yeah, it
But the
has the
strange
pointed
thing is,
ears,
they both
so
have pointy ears, so they're more similar than different in my opinion. I think
yeah,
the
definitely.
silhouette's similar enough that
Also, sorry guys if you hear like my congestion. I'm kind of sick right now, but yeah, let's dive back in the video.
I think there's sort of a question to be asked if they're the same thing or if they're different. But I think the other hints that Friend is a cat probably lean toward them being different things. But even so, the comparison between them is insane. Because now we have to ask the question, How is friend related to endogeny? Does friend have something to do with determination experiments, or maybe like darkness experiments? Is are they the Deltarune equivalent of endogeny in that they are several cats put together somehow using darkness?
Like maybe this all originated from the bunker, possibly? Like, I don't know.
It's baffling. It's baffling. And then he fucking jump scares you. And then of course we get the introduction of Tenna. After all
I love Tina. Tina is literally amazing. I love him. I love him so much. Yeah, I love Tina a lot.
the build-up to finally seeing Tenna on screen, it felt almost impossible that we could be surprised by anything Toby showed us. But one thing I never saw any fanworks depict or suggest is that Tenna would be a pre-rendered 3D model, like straight out of fucking Donkey Kong Country. And I absolutely love
I didn't see anyone or like create like a vision of that before chapter 3, but I did hear someone like speculate about that. But yeah, it's shocking. I didn't expect it, honestly. I thought it was going to be like a sprite or like something like we don't get to see him all that much, but I'm glad that like he was there the whole time. It was fun.
the style of Tenna. He's the
Sorry guys, my camera is like not it's not connected well. I might need to actually like get an actual camera soon. But yeah, I'm just using my phone for right now. But let's hope that it doesn't do that again. So, okay. Yeah, let's dive right back in.
most expressive sprite in Deltarune by a country mile. He is so funny. I love the fucking word art that appears in his text. One of the most fascinating things
I
about Tenna
know, I love
is
that.
that he is by far the most sympathetic main antagonist we've had so far. Throughout all of chapter 3, I feel like you're expecting Tenna to have some sort of heel turn, and I mean, to his credit, he does have a turn where he goes aggro and we need to fight him eventually. But it's not because he wants control or because he wants power. It's just because
He's
he
lonely,
is
for real.
lonely and his
Yeah.
family has left him alone for so many years and he just misses them. He misses Chris and Toriel and the rest of the Dreamers. I absolutely love Tenna. And God, I hope there's
I like Tina more than Spamton and Jebel. Tina is so iconic. I love him.
a good payoff for giving him to Metaton because I miss having Tenna in my castle town. I want to see his stupid VR
I
chat dance
I love
performance in
that
my
stupid
castle town.
dance. It's
But
amazing.
anyway, I'm getting ahead.
In my original playthrough, I gave Tina to Metaton. Um, but yeah, so
Ahead of myself. So after the Tenna introduction, you get thrown into this video game segment where Chris, Susie, and Ralsei all sit on the couch and
I feel like this section gives more credence to Molly Starr's theory, the device theory about a game being inside of a game. I'm like, oh, Molly's onto something.
play like an NES style Deltarune. And this segment, I adore it so much. And the work that must have gone into this segment
I
must have been
know.
so huge. Like, of course,
It's
Chapter 3
crazy.
took so much more time than the other chapters did to develop, because the interplay between Chris, Susie, and Ralsei controlling the characters on screen while still having dialogue off screen and having different scenarios that the characters are doing shit in. It's hard to
That must have
explain
been
how they
hard to
pull it off
code.
like that, but it is so well crafted.
Like, I am so tired of people saying, Toby did not code Undertale well. Like, maybe that's true, but when Deltarune is finally finished, you can go through the code and see how well this is put together. But yeah, like, come on, guys.
Susie and Ross, I feel like they're reacting to everything happening on screen perfectly.
I know, it's
Tenna,
amazing.
again on the couch, is great. Every line of his is great. Pushing buddies. Susie
Like, if you don't like Deltarune, like, what's wrong with you? You know what I
is
mean?
like, I can't figure out how to kill this guy, and Tenna's like, get in line, kid. I really can't praise the video game segments enough. They're the last thing I expected, and I love them. I especially love the part where Susie and Ralsei and Chris all switch control.
I feel like we should have expected this, like a video game segment in chapter 3, since a huge focus was like games, right? I feel like Dragon Blazers, right? You know, and like Noel's whole thing, the Stanton sweepstakes about uh what is that game called in universe? Cat Petters or whatever. A lot of this we should have seen coming. There would be a gaming section in chapter 3. And I didn't think about that. I thought more just like TV, like, you know, Western. We did get like a bit of a Western theme, but not really. But yeah.
The the there's so many good jokes in that bit, and again more Ralsei character development about him developing his own sense of self. And I also wanted to talk about the green room segments. First of all, Ramb. What a fucking fascinating character.
Character, yeah,
For
I
privy to this
love.
information, Ramb was actually
I'm
teased about 2 weeks
interested, you
before the
know?
chapters dropped when the whole Spamton Sweepstakes 2 happened. A bunch of new teasers were like dropped on the Spamton Sweepstakes website, and my dumb ass, because there were 2 links on the website, one to a page called Ramb and one to a page called Rom. I thought that Ramb and Rom were 2 separate characters, so I thought Ramb was the guy in front and then Rom was the guy in back in the S rank room. So when I went on Twitter after beating the game and I saw so much love for Ramb, I was like, Ram didn't do anything. What are you guys talking about? Or they were the same guy. Ram and Rom are just Ram. And Rom is just a misspelling of Ram in one of the quiz segments later on. So that was funny. That was a
Yeah.
whole misunderstanding. But anyways, I love Ram. I don't quite understand his design. It's like he has purple hair that also is dog ears, and I guess he's a power strip that Chris and Azrael stole from the library.
Yeah, I
But
guess
also
he's
the
like a plug.
backstory that Rand is able to give you is so fascinating. He gives us the most complete look into how Darkner back.
I wonder why this character out of every character in chapter 3 knows Chris the most. You know what I mean? Like, why a power strip? It's so odd. I'm fascinated.
Stories work that I think we've seen up to this point. And he talks about how Chris and that girl, I assume that that girl is Noelle. I think he could
Yeah,
also
Noel.
stretch it to mean Des, but I frankly just think that Chris and Noelle are more likely to be the ones playing make believe together than Chris and Des. But he said that Chris and Noelle would play make believe with a bunch of stuff in the living room, and Chris would have King on their side, and Noelle would have Queen, and Tenna would be there in the back, and Ramb was there. And that confirms, first of all, why Queen and King know each other, but also that all of these Darkners used to be
Yeah, we
part
did
of a make
to get that
believe game that
confirmed.
Chris and Noelle used to play with each other. Like, all of these Darkners spawned from a game that Chris and Noelle would play as children, which is so interesting, and I feel like a lot of people aren't talking about that yet. It makes you call further into question the nature of Darkners.
And I'm glad Cammy brought this up because I wasn't thinking about it that much. But that's a great point. Yeah, Noel and Chris, like, there's some backstory there,
Because
definitely.
Ralsei is really pushing this whole Darkners don't matter and you should be able to forget about us mindset, and of course,
But like, the main thing is don't forget. So
we don't want that to be true. We want Ralsei to be real and Lancer and everyone else. But my question is now, did these characters and personalities actually spawn from Chris and Noelle's imagination? Do they have that much influence over their personalities and who they are? And another thing Ram does
I think that their personality is based off of not the people around them's personalities, but if they were an actual person, what their personality would be through the actions of others. So what I'm trying to say is that like the object that turns into a darkener, um, personality is developed around the the actions that were happened or like what happened to them. You know what I mean? Um, and I feel like we shouldn't be like like oh it's kind of like Noel or it's kind of like Chris. Like none of these darkeners I feel like are their own separate identity, and I think that's gonna be something where we'll see like at the end of the game, with Rousey. Like Rousey is his own person. He's not Azrael. You know what I mean? And I feel like that would be a point of contention. But yeah, let's go.
is strengthen my Ralsei theory. And again, I'll talk more about this later, but he makes it pretty clear that the Darkners in Chris's house know each other and they've known each other for a very long time, which makes it all the more suspicious why, if Ralsei is Chris's horn headband or a green crayon, why doesn't anyone know who Ralsei is in Chris's house? But, anyways, the water cooler fight is also fucking insane. The mini games are great. Actually, the mini games aren't great. I fucking hate Susie Zilla. Susie Zilla can suck my ass. I just don't know how to play it. I played it for 2 hours trying to get an S rank and I just decided to stop. Oh, but the music mini game is so good. Raise Up Your Bat is so fucking goated, and it's so fascinating how it gives us a look into Dess's personality. I think if the baseball bat connection wasn't obvious
I do think my favorite section was the cooking section. But yeah, I like Lightner's Live as well. It's giving Garage Band.
already, There are also posters in Dessa's room for band concerts that never happened, and a lot of
But also Guitar Hero. I don't know why I say Garage Band. What the heck?
people are
Okay.
inferring that
Sorry, guys.
Raise Up Your Bat was actually a song written by Des for her band Blood Crushers 3, which was apparently a band that Noelle was listening to during the sweepstakes on her blog. That's a whole can of worms, but still, Raise Up Your Bat, fantastic song, and a really fascinating to look into what I think Des's personality was like. And the fucking when the Lost Girl part came in for the
Da
first
na
time,
na
I
na
was
na na
weeping.
na na
I
na
wasn't weeping,
na
I don't
na na
but
na na na
really,
na na
I was
na.
mentally weeping for sure. So after all the video game
Definitely.
segments in the green room, you get to Toriel. And
Yeah,
this is where
tutorial
the first
section.
really
Super
big major shakeup
confusing.
happened, at least in my mind, where I realized we aren't going to be getting Dark World tag-alongs in the same way that we thought we were going to get
With
them. I kind of
Noelle
assumed
and
that Toriel
Berdly.
would be one of the
It's
party
different.
members this chapter, and that Undyne would end up showing up too, as well as Napstablook probably. Toriel sleeps the entire time, and Undyne appears for 10 seconds at the end. And I think a lot of people are bummed about that. Rightfully so. I think when you believe something for that long it ends up not being true, I think a lot of people can't help but be disappointed. I personally never really thought we were going to get any other additional party members besides Noelle, so I'm not that broken up about it. Oh, and so before I move on to the ending of the chapter, let's talk about the fucking S-rank minigames, because this shit is insane. I thought I had accidentally stumbled onto the weird route the first time I was playing it. It was that scary. Ramb lets you into the back room when you get an
Yeah,
S rank, and there's this strange video game console that you can't play without a controller. But when you try to exit the room,
the
someone just
controller is
leaves a
there.
controller on the ground for you with pink and yellow buttons, and of course it's fucking pink and yellow. More friend shit happening. We
Yeah.
still, despite all the new information about Friend, we still know truly fucking nothing about Friend. But anyhow, we get to play this game that Tenna altered for us, for all of us to play, but we get to play the original version of it,
Tina just wants
where we're
everyone's
controlling
best
Chris with
interest.
a
Like,
sword in this version of the game, and there are a lot of monsters roaming around, and we just have to take them all out. And these games start to feel like you're playing like a fictionalization of the Weird Route. The Weird Route, or even Undertale's Genocide Route, which is fascinating, because all the monsters you're killing look similar to Undertale characters. You have a yellow lizard, a blue fish. You have these white, like, demon-looking guys, but their shape is exactly like Toriel's head. And then a yellow one of those demon guys
it
who's throwing
is. I didn't realize that.
spears like Asgore, and flowers. See, this is why I think it's actually connected to Undertale
I definitely think that Flowey had a big presence in the game portion of Chapter 3.
Genocide, because most of these characters appear in Deltarune, but one who super does not is Flowey.
Flowey,
And these
yeah.
flowers on
That
this
one is the
map
odd
look
one.
exactly like Flowey. The
Literally.
same petal
It's
arrangement.
not even
It's
like
so fascinating. Again, I don't know what to make
too
of this. I
different.
just know that that's what I think. But eventually, once you kill enough
Da-da-da-da.
monsters, you get to kill the bird. And that's the first indication that this is also connected to the Weird Route.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I don't need to explain it. You fucking kill Birdly in the Weird Route. Or, actually, that's a... I was gonna start talking about the Weird Route, but let's save the Weird Route for, like, its own section later on. But basically, you kill all the monsters on that map, and you can finally get the Ice Key. And the Ice Palace was something that we thought we wouldn't be seeing until the end of the game. Again, the Ice Palace is something that was teased by the Spamton sweepstakes as really just a blue screen
Sorry,
with
guys.
white blocks
I'm
on
a
it.
little
Like, we
sick.
had no idea what it was, but, you know, scary, obscure ice-related shit, obviously that's endgame Weird Route stuff. But it's in Chapter 3. So during the second video game board, if you try and take the raft to the top of the map, Tenna will stop you and say that we're not allowed to go up there. But if you go up there during the backstage version of the game, you can go into the Ice Palace. And you're killing more monsters in there, but what's more is you get a character in a white robe that
Well,
I
just
think
like
has to
Noelle.
represent Noelle,
Yeah.
who allows you to shoot ice at enemies and destroy them better. But you use the Ice Mage character to progress further in the game, and then eventually you have to kill her with the text "she was used up," which is so scary and so fascinating. It makes it seem like Noelle is going to be expendable in the Weird Route
Also
somehow.
that,
Like,
but Chris was used up too. Like you were used up. That's what the game says, and I feel like we should also focus on that. Because Chris does not have their own autonomy.
once you're
So
done using her, you discard her. Things being discarded has always been a pretty reoccurring subject in these games, so Noelle being one of those discarded things is pretty disconcerting. And of course you get the bunker key. Or no, not the bunker, the shelter key. I'm gonna have to I'm gonna have to like rearrange my brain to start saying bunk or fuck. I'm gonna have to
Shelter.
start rearranging my brain to say shelter instead of bunker
I keep
because
saying bunker
the
as
game is
well.
finally talking about that thing and it's using the word shelter. And I can't remember if this is where it happens or not, but also at a point it says you were used up. After the white
Yeah.
mage gets used up, it says you were used up, which is even scarier. That implies that after Noelle's done being used, maybe Chris is gonna be done being used as well at some point in the weird route. The
Yeah.
third instance of the mantle game is where things get fucking nuts. This is where you make Chris walk into the bunker. And you really have to make them. They're resisting the whole time you try to make
They
them
do
go
not
in.
want to do
They go
that.
in and you
Like,
encounter this thing that the fandom has been calling Aram, E-R-A-M, because the soundtrack that plays when you're first
yeah.
meeting this thing is Aram. The nature of this thing is so unknown at this point. It has a connection
This boss fight, okay, it did not take me as long as
to Friend
the the Knights fight, but I don't know. It was kind of difficult, but yeah.
apparently. Some people are speculating that it is Friend because it summons Friend during its fights, but it itself is sort of like a well, let's back up a little bit. You're fighting this thing, Aram, to get the Shadow Mantle, which we've
Yeah.
known for a very long time now that Sham says we're going to need the Shadow Mantle to get the third Shadow Crystal, i.e. to beat the Chapter 3 secret boss. But this thing not only does it have a connection to Friend, but it's teasing Chris about wanting to collect the Shadow Crystals. And to be honest, I gotta take the L on this one because I honestly thought that the Shadow Crystals were not going to be plot important. I thought they were essentially just like a physical way to track which secret bosses you've beaten, so you could keep track of it across
I really don't know what they're used for in game. Like, what are they supposed to be? I don't understand. But yeah, let's see what Cammy has to say.
different profiles and stuff. But no, these shadow crystals are plot important as shit. And it starts teasing Chris about how they're having fun collecting them. And anyways, this fight is hard as hell because it's so different from the rest of Deltarune's gameplay. I actually struggled on it for quite some time. But once you beat this
Same, same.
boss is where it gets fucking crazy.
I feel like, and yeah, we get to speak to Gaster, right? Or I guess Gaster, whatever. But honestly, I feel like this character, Eram or whatever, like I feel like it can represent Des. You know what I mean? Well, obviously, because a lot of people think Des is the Roaring Knight, and it's black, like the Roaring Knight, like shadow, darkness. But I don't know.
The boss leaves the shadow mantle in a chest that your character in the game can't reach, so you have to walk outside of the screen,
Oh yeah,
be
that
in the
too.
little pixelated Chris on the screen, exit the screen, and start approaching Chris, and Chris
Oh, I was thinking about the previous section after round two. I think that's when you speak to Gaster. I don't remember if you speak to Gaster in this section, but yeah, let's see.
starts backing up, and God, it's
Yeah, that
such
moment was
an
crazy.
intense image, so horrifying. And I think it sort of establishes a pattern that we're seeing with collecting the shadow crystals. In a lot of ways, we are putting Chris through it when we're collecting these shadow
We
crystals.
are
The
like
encounters with Spamton and Jebel, they both really emphasize how trapped and not free Chris is. You know, freedom is obviously the
we're
big
putting strain
theme
on
with those
them,
two. Chris
obviously,
especially is
but
really perturbed after the Spamton fight, after Spamton's strings are cut and he collapses. Now more than ever, if you want to have the Chapter 3 Shadow Crystal, you need to do this to Chris. You need to force them into the bunker and have them confront you as the little sprite version of them. And it's honestly, it's uncomfortable. But
it
anyways,
was. I
so
remember
much
doing it, and I felt so uncomfortable doing that. Um, I did not get that extra scene with Susie and Chris, but I have seen it, and it's actually kind of fan servicey for Chriselle, not Chriselle, uh, Cruzy. I guess that was Chris and Susie. Um, shippers. It's weird. I don't know how to feel, but yeah, let's continue.
so much strangeness. I mean, we already knew that Chris had some sort of encounter with the shelter when they were a child, but this only emphasizes that more and also connects a friend to the shelter. But anyways, moving back to the main game at hand, the segment that comes after all the game boards is so fucking good. The segment where you're moving through the TV studio and recruiting all the enemies and
TV World.
making everyone quit Tenna's
I don't wish TV World was longer, but I do wish it was a little bit more varied. But I
Guys,
did
come
enjoy
on.
it.
The song that plays during this part, TV World, best fucking song in Chapter 3. I know people are hyping up
Black Knife
its
though.
TV time, Tennis boss theme, but TV World is so good. And the rules fight is so fucking fun.
Bro, the rules fight is literally so funny. I love El Nina and La Nino. They're literally iconic. I love them, and the throuple is crazy. Also, I do ship El Nino, or El Nina and La Nino. So yeah. Eh. Uh, Also, rules was a little weird, but like as expected, he was super funny. I love him. Um, I love how like Toby keeps bringing him back every chapter, and I hope that's a recurring thing. And people like, oh, it's gonna get old after chapter 3. I'm like, it's not. And of course, he wasn't in chapter 4, but that was a serious one, guys. I'm sure he'll be back.
Funny. The rules, God, I feel like I didn't appreciate rules enough until now. Like I knew he was a
I appreciated Rules. I was so excited to see him going into chapter 3. I love this character, so
funny guy, but like I didn't know that his fight would be the peak of comedy in this chapter. Holy shit. Him being in a throuple with La Nino and El Nina and fucking directing their attacks with a laser pointer. God, every time you think that
it
Toby
was literally
Fox
so
can't possibly
stupid.
innovate a battle in a way that you'd never expect, he does it again. It's like
It was stupid in the best ways, so.
clockwork. And then finally we get to the end of the chapter. The Tenna boss fight is so good.
The Tenna boss fight is like actually so RNG in the way that I played through it 3 times and the difficulty level varied significantly every single time. It was crazy. Um, yeah, like the first time I played it, it was super easy. The second time, kind of hard. Third time, literally so hard. I almost died, and like I didn't die like in chapter 3 that much at all, except on the ERAM fight or whatever. But yeah,
It's like playing WarioWare. I'm a big WarioWare fan. I have been ever since I was a kid. And getting to switch between all these mini games while fighting him, it's the perfect way to encapsulate the whole vibe of this chapter and also innovate on the
Tenna.
battle system in a way that I never would have expected. Because fighting Queen in chapter 2, you're like, this isn't like a unique soul mode or anything like the bosses in Undertale had. It's just we're playing a different game now. It's Punch Out. So like, how is
It's a
this
completely
going to be
different
expanded
game.
upon in future chapters? And I think basically playing WarioWare in Tenna's boss fight is one of the best directions it could have possibly gone in. And It's TV Time, the song that plays, is also fucking phenomenal. Tenna's a fascinating character to me because for a while I feel like I didn't quite get him because in a lot of ways he felt like an extension of Spamton. You know, he talks in a showman like
Well, we do know that Spamton kind of based himself off of Tenna, and we already knew that. But
a
I'm sure
showmanly
Cammy will say here that he realized that like he's more of his own character.
manner. He has that big pointy white nose.
Yeah.
He even shares a lot of musical motifs with Spamton. And I think I thought this because Spamton has held such an important place in the community for so long, for almost 5 years now. So when a character comes in with all these connections to Spamton, he feels like an extension of Spamton. But what I had to realize is that if these chapters all came out at the same time like originally intended, it would feel the opposite. Like Spamton would feel like foreshadowing of Tenna. And I think that's what was holding me back from really loving Tenna until now, because I didn't understand that. I thought it was like more Spamton, but Spamton was just our first taste of Tenna. And Hey Every, the it was
All
never
over chapter
Spamton's
3.
motif in the first place. That is Tenna's motif to a T. It's
Yeah, it is.
Mr. Antenna's TV
TV
time, but
time.
it's just
Yeah.
missing the time. So that's why Hey Every is everywhere in chapter 3 because that's fucking Tenna's song. And he stole it like broke and he fucking like he stole Tenna's heart. The Spamton
He
Tenna
did.
story is also fascinating. I'm honestly not super knowledgeable on it right now, but it seems like it's unclear to me if Tenna was the person who was giving Spamton success on the phone or if we're still blaming Gaster for that or what. But clearly they had a partnership and it didn't end well. Oh god, and the cut scene where they interact is so strange.
I
It
wish I
felt like
got that one
watching a
on the first
fan
playthrough, but I
animation, to be
didn't.
honest.
I
Maybe
know, it
I'll
literally
warm up
felt
to it
like it.
eventually, I don't know. But let's get serious for a second. I
Oh,
do feel like it's a
okay.
little deflating to have Spamton actually just come out of your pocket and regain his regular form. Because to me, it felt like there was a sort of significance to the secret bosses sort of giving up their physical form to become items for you. Like it felt meaningful in a way. And the fact that they can just go back to being their normal selves is kind of, I won't say disappointing, but it does make the resolution to their fights less meaningful in my mind, less cogent. Not to say the cutscene isn't funny though. But anyway, after the Tenna fight, I could
The
not
Roaring
believe my
Knight.
fucking mind. Out of nowhere, the goddamn Roaring Knight appears. Don't talk to me about Seven Knights Theory, okay? I'm still mourning. Toby took Seven Knights Theory out back and shot it in the back of the head. I'm fine. I just need a little bit more time to process things.
I will be talking about the Seven Knights theory. So that is one person that is probably, maybe, possibly not just a Lightner. So also it's one person. So no, but it's crazy. All these theories are debunked. I feel so bad for the theorists, Deltarune theorists, like other YouTubers, like like Molly Stars. Well, Molly Stars theory actually still holds up quite well, but I guess Cammy and who's another hero? Jaru. Like of course uh Oberon Smog is not the knight. We can definitely say that. Gerson played his role in chapter 4. So
But the Roaring Knight's appearance was the one of the best fucking moments in this entire game. How insane, how cool. And
I love this fight. This fight is amazing. I think it's my favorite fight in the game, like period. And I know that's controversial since, like fights like, Tennis fight was great, and Queen's fight, and Spamton's, but also we can't forget Jevil. Jevil's fight was iconic, but yeah, this one takes the cake.
and the appearance is fucking the Roaring Knight has deer horns. And now the question isn't who is the knight with every single person in town on the suspect list. It's now, is it Des or is it Carol? Because
Or is it Rudy? Like my last reaction to the Soph, they thought that was Rudy, but which holiday is it? That it's not Noel, but
Des has a baseball bat and the knight's sword looks an awful lot like a baseball bat, but Carol has a black katana in her house, which also could be the knight's sword. I'm on the Des side of things, I think, but well,
I am
I
too.
think there's room for both. I think a lot of people are leaning a little too hard into Des, and I think there's still room to find out. But I am on Team Des at the moment. In the music, Black Knife. It's fucking and I think and well, if you're
Yeah,
not
I love
aware,
that song.
the night fight is also the secret boss, air quotes, of this chapter, because it appears to be
It
a
is.
cutscene boss, like a boss that you lose automatically to, and then the story progresses. But has there ever been a game before where you encounter a cutscene boss, but then if you go back and fight the cutscene boss again, it'll let you retry? That is such a cool subversion of
I
that
know it's
trope, and
crazy.
I don't know if it's appeared anywhere else, but of course it would come from Toby's mind, right? The night is so fucking cool, dude. It's just so fucking cool. And then it takes Undyne to the bunker. It tries to take Toriel to not the bunker, the shelter. It tries to take Toriel, but it ends up taking Undyne to the shelter. And Chris and Susie find out that there is a code to get in the shelter. One with a Christmas tree, one with a cop's badge, and one with a Deltarune next to it.
Yeah, the story progressing this way is super
And
interesting.
that is so fascinating because Susie starts speculating on like who could have a connection to the church and the cops and to the holidays. And I don't know about you guys, but my mind went to Asgore. And there's more about Asgore to talk about that we'll get to later. By the way, since I
I think it's Asgore, Carol, and Toriel.
mentioned Asgore, I just want to point out, despite everything I got wrong in the Seven Knights videos, I got one bizarrely specific thing correct. And that's the fact that I theorized that Toby cut the intro where we would see the silhouette of the knight because the knight's horns would give away who they were. And in that video, I suggested that Asgore's horns would have given away the knight's identity, but in fact, the fucking deer horns would have given away the knight's identity. So funny how that worked out. But anyways, Susie walks off screen, leaving Chris alone with the bunker there at the end, and then the bunker opens
Opens.
for
Yeah.
Chris. So it seems like Chris is working with the knight. And that's not
Yeah.
the only reason why. There's also the fact that when you defeat the knight in battle, after the knight takes out Susie and Ralsei with one fell swoop each, the knight doesn't take out Chris. The knight lays their sword on their shoulder
Literally
and gets
knights
them to kneel for
Chris.
them. There's that, and the fact that Chris will also kneel to them when they're down in battle. So it appears that Chris is working with the knight, but also that's not the only allegiance Chris has. So chapter 3 overall, so different from the chapters we've had.
I think chapter 3 is my favorite chapter, and I know that's an unpopular opinion since the music in chapter 4 is great and the ending is amazing, but I think chapter 3, and usually I don't like fun things. I don't prioritize fun like things in games over like serious lore heavy things, but I don't know, the gimmicks in chapter 3 and the comedy was hilarious. And all the character stuff was still there. The characterization for Rousey and Susie were amazing. And I know like I feel like people were disappointed by chapter 3 and that's why they don't like it because Toria, Undyne weren't really in the story that much. And they were there, but like for a few seconds, not like the whole time. So but I'm all here for any characterization, and I really wanted to know more about like Rousey and Susie, and we definitely got more of their dynamic, and I don't know, I think that they play off each other really well, especially at the start, and um, yeah, at the start, and especially in chapter 4 as well. But I don't know, chapter 3 was amazing still.
Had before, and it was really the first indication that nothing we thought we knew about this game was correct. And Chapter 3 alone disproves so many things we thought to be true. First of all, chess theory out the fucking window. I think
I feel like chess theory could still be true in a way, but I don't know. I feel like you'd have to stretch to make it true, but I'm unsure.
a lot of people, including me, were in denial about chess theory because Tenna was so obviously going to be the big boss of Chapter 3, but
Yeah.
we were all trying to find ways where somehow Rook could actually be the boss, like if Rook was part of Tenna's name, or if Rook was like someone Tenna answers to. But no, there's no Rook. Chess theory just isn't real. But there's also the fact that this whole time we've just been taking for granted the fact that both secret bosses have been these discarded objects that went crazy, presumably because of the influence of Gaster. There are two things that could be considered secret bosses in this chapter, and neither one of them fit that criteria. Aram and the Roaring Knight are completely unique. They're unlike anything we've faced so far, and that's so fascinating to me because there's going to continue being secret bosses in future chapters, and we don't know what the hell they're going to be. We don't even have a way to start guessing. And of course, encountering the Roaring Knight in chapter 3 is so much earlier than anyone thought we were going to see them. I think a lot of people were thinking
Chapter 5.
5 earliest, right? Because
Yeah.
of chess theory. But a lot of people were also thinking, like, the night is endgame, right? Like chapter 6, 7, when shit starts to really go down. But that's not even the
I don't think we're gonna see the knight in, I don't think we're gonna fight the knight in chapter 5, but possibly chapter 6 and 7.
the last thing that we thought was going to happen in the end game that happens in these chapters. Chapter 3 overall, so fun, so funny, great music. It's like the perfect reprieve before things start really getting serious
Yeah, it was a good bridge
in this
to
game,
chapter
and I
like the
really
rest of the
appreciate
game.
it a lot for that. It's such a fun time. But then Chapter 4 starts, and Chapter 4 is Deltarune's best chapter, hands down. I was blown away by every aspect of it, really. There's nothing about Chapter 4 that I didn't like. First of all of the Chris and Susie moments in the intro light world portion are so good.
I did like the light world section. I just didn't enjoy the first part of the dark world that much. I was kind of disappointed in a way, but I don't know why. I don't know why I feel that way. I'll probably come back around on it, since of course it's Deltarune. It's amazing, but
I love the developing friendship between Chris and Susie, and seeing them connect so much is also really one of the biggest indicators that whatever Chris is doing with the Knight and Carol and whatever, that Chris is still a lonely teenager,
still
a character we should care about. Because
like they're still friends with Susie. Like that's not going to, well, it might change. And we might have like a thing, but like don't forget guys, their friendship is real.
their connection with Susie is so it's the best. It's the best relationship in the game. I'm saying it right now. I'm saying it. One revelation that comes on early in chapter 4 that I feel like a lot of people aren't talking about as much as I would expect them to is the fact that the prophecy is the whole town's religion.
Religion,
I think a lot
yeah.
of us were operating under the assumption that the prophecy is something that Gaster gave directly to Ralsei and no one else knows.
I didn't think that. I did think that, that Alvin at least believed in, like, the religion was the prophecy. I do think that because of the Deltarune on it, and of course the Deltarune's significance in Undertale. So I did think it was real. I didn't think that like it was going to be something like no one knew about. Because that would be anticlimactic. Like I did think that it was going to be like important. I didn't know specifically a religion. I thought maybe there would be like a secret group of people. But this is better. So anyway,
Knows it,
so
but now we know that the prophecy is common knowledge, which is really interesting. Really, the only reason we didn't know that already is because Chris doesn't talk and Susie doesn't go to church. But everyone
yeah,
else, basically everyone else in town, should know what the prophecy is, and by extension, I think most, if not all, Darkners do as well. Which reminds me, there's that line
which
from
makes
Lancer in
sense.
chapter one, the one that where he says that he's the pointy-headed kid from the prophecy. And there's always been discourse around that line, questioning if he really does know the prophecy or if it's just a meta joke and we shouldn't pay much attention to it. But now we know that Lancer
Was
literally
literally
does
there
appear in the prophecy as
when he says it was going to say toothpaste, and then boy.
small of a part as he does play saying toothpaste and then boy. He's in that thing. But anyways, I'm skipping ahead too far. The reveal of Ralsei's room in Castletown is so heartbreaking and so good. And again, we are chipping away at Ralsei's lack of self-worth and his refusal to acknowledge his growing personhood, his identity. And seeing Susie at every single opportunity push back against that and insist that Ralsei is a real person.
Yeah, that was very heartwarming. But I feel like Rousey's avoidance to this whole subject makes so much sense. And I think it was so sad in chapter 3 and 4, the points where he felt so strong about Chris and Susie, but he knows how it's going to end. So that's why I feel like Rousey was having an inner conflict at the end of chapter 4, and that's why he got so upset about Susie figuring out what happened at the end of the prophecy, right? Because guys, he loves his friends. He loves Chris and Susie, and it's so sad. And I don't know. Rousey's character has definitely went up. I think Rousey will go up in a lot of people's tier lists if they are well cultured. But yeah,
Who deserves things and deserves to be loved and cared for and deserves to be themselves is it's so good, so beautiful, so heartwarming. Susie's so great. And
I love
then of course
Susie.
we have the scene at the holiday house. And this is fucking
Da, da, na,
insane.
na, da, na,
Chris
na, da,
tears
na,
the soul out of
na.
their body, throws it in a gift box, but then we as the soul get to leave the gift box.
Yeah, I think that the Holiday House was the most whiplash I got. Not even the WarioWare-esque shenanigans in chapter 3 with Tina. This was the most whiplash because we got like Susie and Noel, we got Chris, we got Carol, we got mentions of the night, we got Asgore, we got the weird root. Like it's crazy, and like the way that you can like the soul like travels to the vents, and Chris openly like like taking out their soul behind people's literally Susie and Noel's back like it was nothing. Like we knew like that probably would happen, but it's
Start
crazy.
moving around the vents and interact with the world physically as the soul.
Also, that stupid vent joke that Susie made was awful. Like that sucked so bad. Like about the Among Us. Like no, I do have an Among Us plushie though. It's like right here. Um, but don't mind that. Also, there is Sans, Miku, and then the annoying dog. So yeah,
Rather than as Chris. That was such a surreal feeling, but because it feels like our control as the soul has been so limited so far. Like, really, the only amount of control we've exerted as it, outside of battles, of course, is when we've been in the birdcage and we're able to, like, move around a pixel at a time. The fact that we can fly around the holiday house and
crazy.
interact with shit and eavesdrop on Asgore and Chris
Oh,
and
also the deaths. Like we got so much revealed in back-to-back scenes of
Like that
this
Noelle
thing.
and Susie pick us up is so surreal. Again, stuff like this I thought would only happen near the end game, where our control over the soul really starts to differentiate itself from Chris. And I'm glad it does, because I think it makes it a lot clearer to casual players what's going on here, that we're a separate entity from Chris and they don't like that we're possessing them. And goddamn, the Suzel content in this part of the game is fucking wild. You played it, you saw it, you know what's going on. They are so adorable. I love it. I love it all. Now the fascinating stuff about this segment as the soul is all the shit you can eavesdrop on, like I already mentioned. First of all, you can eavesdrop on Chris on a phone call with someone while they're making chocolate milk. It seems like the words they're saying are broken up, like we're not hearing the whole conversation, but they're talking about how a sacrifice is going to be happening next week, seemingly having to do something with the cops,
I
which
do
might
think
be why
this
they
is
took
Carol.
Undyne. The fact that Chris needs the soul to do something in particular, most likely to seal fountains and to seal titans, as we see later. Chris having the soul inside them is part of whatever plan they're conspiring. And then we find Asgore, and Asgore's like cleaning their toilet or something. Like he's basically the
The
Holiday's
plumber.
maid. But then we get this revelation that
Yeah,
he
that too.
has a black shard that might be a shadow crystal. And this is really strange because
I
shadow
think that
crystals up
the
until this
mayor
point, they've
is
been
like
explicit
making like excuses for people to be out of the house, and that's why she wants Noelle to have doesn't have a key, so she does get locked out, and that's why Asgard's there because he's working with her, and that's why Rudy's possibly in the hospital. I don't know, guys. It's crazy.
said to look like glass, basically. That being said, the knight's
Shadow
armor is
Crystal.
completely black, right? Their armor and their sword. And then when
Asgore
Susie takes
Knight.
a chip off of their sword when you beat the knight
No,
fight, the black part that comes off is a shadow crystal. So are we to assume that the black thing Asgore has is also a shadow crystal, or is it something completely different? Does it have to do with the
it's a
knight? It's
shadow
really unclear at the
something. I don't know if
moment.
it's a
And there's
shadow
also, oh
crystal,
god, I
but
haven't even talked about this, in the gacha machine in chapter 3, when you put in 1225 into how many points you donate into it, 1225 being Christmas, of course, you get this secret where you find another gacha machine and like a little black shard of something comes out of that, and it feels like it passes through your hand, like you can't see your hand through it, and then you don't have a hand at all. I can't remember exactly all the
I didn't
text
know
that it
this
says,
text
but it
existed.
seems to
Wow.
imply that the black thing is also the thing that is see-through. I don't know. It's strange. It's
Let
strange.
me make a
But it
camera a
seems
little
like Asgore
smaller.
has a shadow crystal. Not only that, but when you look inside Asgore's flower
There we go.
shop in the basement, you can see that he has like conspiracy boards pinned up and shit. In the church, Toriel talks about how Carol, Noelle's mom, is enabling Asgore with the shit he's interested in. And then in
Yeah.
Carol's bedroom, where you can spy on Asgore, you see she has conspiracy boards pinned up as well. So it seems like Asgore and Carol are somehow collaborating on whatever this conspiracy is. And
It's definitely
if I
about
had to guess,
deaths.
it's probably, has to do with deaths. And Asgore has these lines about how it wasn't his fault and finally everyone will see, and then they can be happy again. And there's been this long-standing assumption in the fandom that Asgore had something to do with Dess's death. Not that we had any evidence for it, but it was sort of just an Occam's razor connection. Like there's this mystery and there's this mystery, put them together and they feel like one mystery. But we do have confirmation that Toriel does somehow hold Asgore responsible for whatever happened to Dess, and that he's trying to clear his name. We'll have to see what happens with that in chapter 5. But then Carol shows up, and Carol is fucking terrifying. The
She
music
is.
that plays when she comes into the house, like the cold
Why is she aura
breathing
farming?
sounds
Like,
that
what the
play are
heck?
so scary. Like immediately, you're like, this is a fucking villain that just walked in. She looks like the goddamn Grinch. And she hates that Susie and Noelle are hanging out, and she fucking kicks everyone out. Except she puts her hand on Chris's shoulder and she says, as you know, you are welcome here anytime.
Yeah, so like obviously us as the player, I guess. I don't know. I'm confused about that part. I'm guessing it's the player, but is it bad? I'm kind of so fascinated and like interested in her character. Like she's such an interesting character. I want to know what's happening with her. Also, just like Carol being confirmed to be the mayor, obviously like a lot of people already knew that. But like it's so I feel so good for her to be an actual character and her being the mayor at the same time. I don't know. I love her as a character, not as a I love her I love her place in the plot. Like I like how she interacts with people, it makes the story better. As like a person, probably not person, but yeah.
time, and you is highlighted in red. And
Like
that
the
is
soul.
so bizarre because that implies that she's not talking to Chris, she's talking to us. But
Us.
on the
Yeah.
other hand, when Chris is talking on the phone after Susie gets the guitar, oh, I didn't even talk about that part. The code, one of the codes for the bunker is in Dessa's
1225.
guitar, and Susie gets the guitar because she wants to play it for Noelle. When Chris sees that happening, they call someone, and the person says, "I'll be right there," and that's when Carol shows up. So there is some spiderweb of allegiances happening between Chris, Carol,
Carol
the knight, and
Asgore,
the player.
Knight,
It kind of seems like
Player,
the player and
Rudy.
Carol are on one side, and
Maybe
then
not
Chris
Rudy.
and the knight are on another. Maybe they're all conspiring. Maybe Carol and the knight are the same person. But again, why is Carol talking to the
I
soul
don't think
before
so.
talking to Chris? Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff we do not have an answer to. And that's not even taking into account the shit that goes down in the weird route, but I'm going to save that for later. So anyways, once Chris and Susie get kicked out of the house, then it
Cammy said he was going to wait to talk about it later, and I really want to talk about it, but I'll hold off for a few minutes.
starts raining. They try to go home, but Toriel's at choir practice and she has the key, so they go to the church. Oh, and fucking, I say this as someone who really doesn't ship often. Really,
Nice
like
cream
the idea
pants.
behind the ship tier list video with me and Snellinger is that neither of us really are involved with shipping at all. But I say this as a non-shipper. Azzy Pants has fallen, and Nice Pants is rising from the ashes. I'm telling you. Also, I was completely correct about Bratty catfishing Burger Pants, but now it's Nice Cream Blue Ears Man catfishing Burger Pants instead. So I'm excited to see where that goes. I hope they get together by the end. But finally, Chris and Susie
Same.
enter the church dark world. And that is another one of my predictions that came true, but it was a pretty popular prediction, so I can't really take any credit for it. I predicted Caddy and Jockington would be in this world, and
I
they sure
wish they
are.
were.
But the beginning of this dark world was like
Sorry, guys. I'm sick.
a
Let's go.
descendant moment for me. But, well, first of all, they see the knight in there. The knight throws some swords at him and makes him fall a big distance. Ralsei shows up, and Ralsei is acting strange, stranger than usual in this chapter. We'll find out why later. But
Yeah.
when the gang's all together and Ralsei shows up, you start
Crazy.
climbing these stairs and seeing pieces of the prophecy laid out. And the music that's playing, the first sanctuary music, is fucking
And it makes sense since the church is prophecy and yeah, all
transcendent.
that.
You see like all the I forget what they're called, but the singing enemies in the background appearing as they go like oh, oh. Climbing the stairs, listening to this music, seeing the prophecy unfold, and it's like oh, it's
It's
magic.
very.
It's
You could
magic.
tell this
This
is
is
what Toby
where the
wanted to
story
do
really
with
starts focusing
DELTARUNE,
in
you
on the
know?
prophecy. The fact that Ralsei did know the prophecy this whole time, but like I predicted in the Ralsei video, Ralsei was not telling us all of it. And we finally get to see the rest of the prophecy that presumably
Hammy
will
was right
relate to
about
this.
that. I'll give
And
him
there's not
that.
much revealed at the beginning of chapter 4, but it'll get a lot more relevant later on. But then fucking Gerson shows up.
Gerson,
Just
boom.
shows up out of fucking nowhere and is the best character in Deltarune. I don't know how else to explain
Gerson
it.
is so cool.
Wow. The arc that Susie has with Gerson is so fantastic. And it's funny because I think like the old master who like seems kooky at first but has like a certain way of teaching lessons and it can still do it. You know, I feel like it's a very tropey thing to pull. But
It is
Toby is such a
tropey.
good writer that there wasn't a second of disdain or I've seen this before that I felt in all of Susie's arc with Gerson. I thought it was so compelling. Gerson is a fantastic character. He's so funny. He and Susie are so sweet together. And the secret boss fight against the Hammer of Justice was a dream come true. Toby said that in Deltarune he wanted to sort of revisit some concepts that he couldn't in Undertale, and that's why the fight against Spamton Neo was essentially like the fight against
Metaton
Metaton
Neo,
that
yeah.
everyone wanted. And now we finally get to fight Gerson at his peak when he was the Hammer of Justice, the warrior. And the fact that his theme takes from Undyne's theme, from both of Undyne's themes, from Spear of Justice and Battle Against a True Hero, they're both incorporated into the Hammer of Justice's song is so great. Like, of course, Undyne's Spear of Justice would be based on the Hammer of Justice because she idolized him because he was a great warrior in Undertale's past. And then also the fight mirroring Undyne's training with Asgore. because Undyne talked about how Asgore trained her in the Royal Guard, and she worked and worked and worked against him, and when she could finally land one hit on him, he was so happy. And this fight is all about Susie trying and trying and trying to land a hit on Gerson, and when she finally does, that's when she gets the Shadow Crystal and the hammer from him. God, it's like fucking poetry! So really, everything with Gerson, I just found so fantastic. And before I forget,
Jackie Stein!
Jackenstein
I love
is
him.
adorable.
Some people hate him. I love
Jackenstein is
him.
the best. I think Jackenstein might be the funniest fight in the game. You know, the production value on Deltarune is climbing so steadily,
It
right?
is.
Sometimes you forget that this is the guy who made Undertale. And when I was fighting Jackenstein, I was like, oh yeah, this is Toby Fox. You're taking too long.
You're
everything about
taking too long is
Jackenstein
taking
fight
too
was
long.
hilarious.
Yeah,
Jackenstein
it is
is so cute,
hilarious.
so funny. So cool how he comes back later in the chapter to help you climb. Oh, and while we're talking about climbing, this might be something that like no one else in the world is talking about or cares about. I really like the climbing mechanic in this game, as opposed to all of the other sort of like overworld mini games you
I'm
play
sure
in
lots of
Undertale
people are
and
talking
Deltarune.
about it.
The climbing felt really natural with the controls, and I kind of hope that they continue to implement that in future chapters. That's just me, though. I don't think I've heard a single other
They'll
person
probably do
praising
it
the
once
climbing
more.
controls in Deltarune. But I thought it was really nice. I liked it. And of course, it makes for a great climax where you're climbing the crumbling tower. But anyways, getting ahead of myself once again. Once you find a knight, they escape through another great door into the other room of the church and
use
close
that
the fountain. And while I'm talking about that, the fact that you
gimmick
can leave Dark Worlds through great
nicely.
doors is another big revelation. And it sort of disproves a lot of what I was saying about Castletown in my Ralsei theory. Because as it turns out, sealing dark fountains is not the only way to leave them. Great doors represent doors in the real world, it seems like, and so when you go through the great door from Castletown to the Card Kingdom, obviously, I think a lot of people already figure that that was us going through the door from the closet to the classroom. But now we know that a great door can be an exit to a dark world.
Yeah, I feel like lots of people had these like confines of what a dark world was, you know what I mean? And how to seal it. And I feel like whatever the dark is made out of, like whatever like the depths, like ocean like kind of theme, but like it's some kind of like material it's like the dark is made out of, I feel. And like I feel like we need to think about it like it's like more like glooby, almost like how Tina says, you know? Okay, I'm just making up nonsense, but I don't know, like the darkness doesn't just spill out. Like it does. It's like airy goo. It's like airy goo. Like I don't know. It's crazy. I don't know what it is, but it's insane. Like
World. Like when Chris and Susie walk through one at the end of chapter 3, they just exit the house, and then a great door represents a separation between two rooms in the church. So that's interesting. We now know that dark fountains can be left as long as you find the great door. But anyways, Chris and Susie seal the dark fountain. They're back in like the church entry hall, and the reveal that Gerson was actually well, rather, the old man
the ashes.
was actually Gerson's hammer covered in his dust that Alvin had kept in his drawer is... I mean, I think everyone was assuming that, right? But the fact that Susie understands is such a good moment. Because,
it's a
again,
good
so many
point.
people were
I
thinking
like that.
Susie just wasn't going to comprehend how Dark Worlds worked until later on in the story. The fact that she finds this and she understands what Gerson was, I think, is such a good choice. Because it makes for, like, such a gut punch for her character, and also sets up this mechanic for further on in the story, because now we're thinking, if Gerson could be resurrected by the fountain, Ralsei comes in later and says that fountains resurrecting loved ones doesn't always work, but that absolutely sets up the possibility that other people will try to get resurrected with fountains in the future,
like
Noah and Rudy,
this.
as I
Oh yeah,
theorized
Rudy.
in Seven Nights. And then
Definitely
another thing I
Rudy.
theorized about comes true, and that is, against all odds, despite the entire theory being wrong, Susie does make a dark world in chapter 4. She reopens
Yeah, you
the
called
dark
that.
world to find the old man again and ask
I
Gerson
definitely
how
thought
to
she was
get through
going
the
to make
door.
one as
And
well.
the second sanctuary that you enter is so cool. I think the revelation that you can open another dark world in the same place, but it's not going to be the same because a different person made it, is so fascinating. It opens up so many
That is
possibilities place for the future
interesting.
as well, because it's the same in many ways. It's a reflection of the other Dark World, but so many things are different. I think the fact that Gerson couldn't come back to life in Susie's fountain maybe speaks to the fact that she really didn't know the person that Gerson was before he died very well, so her Dark Fountain couldn't really match the intent of the Knight's Dark Fountain, which also lends itself to the Knight being Des, because Des would have had Gerson as a teacher, so her love for him would have resurrected him in that way and made
Interesting.
him a
That's
good teacher for
true.
Susie, I think. But this is also where we
I
have to
didn't think
fight the
about that.
Gerson statues. Then Ralsei comes and save us, and Susie has the big crash out at Ralsei.
Yeah,
We're
Susie crashed
finally
out.
acknowledging in this story that Ralsei knows shit, and he does not say anything. Official recognition that Ralsei is constantly lying through a mission. Official acknowledgement from Ralsei himself that he knows the prophecy. He knows things that are going to happen, and he keeps quiet because he doesn't want to upset people. Susie's anger at that is so real and understandable, but her understanding is also so beautiful and so Susie. I think Susie's kindness is really coming through in these chapters, and the fact that she really does want to see the best in people and she doesn't want to be angry is Susie and Ralsei grow so much in chapter 4.
I
It's
know.
insane.
It's
Also,
great.
in the second sanctuary, we start seeing parts of the prophecy that become a little more relevant. The prophecy is listing out the heroes, and there's the first hero, the cage with human soul and parts.
This part about the prophecy confused me so much. Uh, the cage with human soul and parts. Like, is that the vessel? Is it Chris? Is it a mixture of both? Is it none? I don't
So, first of
understand
all, that could be
that part
referencing Chris or
of the
the vessel.
prophecy.
We'll have to see. There's a third hero, the Prince Alone in the Dark, or whatever it was. But here's the thing that a lot of people have been talking about on Twitter, and I think Spooky Dude may have released a video on it as well, so link in the description if he has. People are starting to suspect that Susie isn't really the second hero from the
And that
prophecy. The prophecy
Noelle
is out
is,
of
or
order in
someone else is
Susie's
at
Dark
least.
World. There are a couple different pieces of the prophecy that mention a girl, right? The second hero, the girl with hope crossed on her heart, and then there's another part that says, and last the girl, at last the girl. And you're supposed to think these pieces of the prophecy are talking about the same girl, the same second hero, but they're out of order. And the girl with hope crossed on her heart would have been talked about second, and then another girl is talked about at last. There's a fourth
There's two
main
girls.
character, per se, of the prophecy. And obviously,
Noelle.
I think the popular opinion is that it's Noelle. But now we need to reckon with, is Susie the girl with hope crossed on her heart and Noelle the other girl? Or is it the other way around? Is Noelle the second hero? And Gerson's dialogue in his fight makes it all the more clear that Susie might not be one of the heroes. When she asks which character of Dragon Blazer she
Like,
is,
you're
he
the
says
dragon.
she's the dragon. And that's another revelation, that Dragon Blazers was based on Lord of the Hammer, was based on the prophecy.
That's
There's this
crazy.
whole theme of fiction derived from other pieces of fiction that spreads its way all through
Molly
chapter 4.
Stars is
That's
so
really fascinating.
excited
There was
about that.
already a lot of discussion that the plot details of Dragon Blazers would end up aligning with the plot details of Deltarune. But now, not only do we have confirmation of that, but we also have the fact that these aren't one-to-one copies of each other, they're adaptations of each other. Things change in adaptations. Things change to suit the medium or the story the new author wanted to tell, which is also what held Alvin back from writing the end to Lord of the Hammer. But I digress. Then there are other pieces of the prophecy that we see, like the Flower Man trapped in asylum or something. I think
what is up
which
with
seems to
Asgore?
confirm,
Like,
along with Gerson,
why is
the
he a
flower
part of the
shop is probably
prophecy?
going to be the next chapter's Dark World location, and Asgore is probably going to play a major role in it. The heroes will see the Tail of Hell take crawl, and the Tail of Hell is like a bunch of circles together, and that, again, invokes Friend, I think, because
I
Friend
don't know.
may or may not be a cat
don't.
from Cat Pedders, one of Noelle's games that she likes to play, which are made out of circles. It's based on like an old PC game called Cats, I believe, and the cats were made out of like orbs. And so seeing a tail made out of orbs definitely calls attention to Friend. And then there's the part of the prophecy that depicts the angel, and we don't get to see that, but Susie seems disgusted by it. And the conversation I've seen on Twitter, I find really fascinating, is that we can't see it, and the screen where it should be depicted is black. And when the screen is black, you often see yourself reflected in it. So I think that lends a lot of credence to player angel theory. But enough about the prophecy. We get to the climax of the chapter, where we go into the third sanctuary to fight the Knight again.
Yep, after closing the
this is so cool. There's
second one that Susie made,
where Chris, Ralsei, and Susie, they're all walking.
I love that
the
scene.
red wind of the night
Okay,
comes
I
down
love
on
that
them.
scene, but like when all of them are running, like I can't. Like Rousey's like not even running, like he's literally just floating, ascending me. Like I couldn't take that scene seriously.
And swords start coming down, and they start switching places to take the swords
I
from
wish
each
he had like
other
an
so
actual
to
running
protect
sprite,
each
but
other
you
from
know,
them. It's so
it's whatever.
touching. Of course, Toby Fox can pull off a power of friendship moment in the year 2025. It's just beautiful. And then finally, at the end of that, and the really cool
I think
climbing
it's pulled off so well because there's so much adversity here at play that it's just like and like there's so much adversity and these characters have been built up so much like we needed chapter 3. Like I know a lot of people wanted to dive right back into the lore, but chapter 3 was a great character building chapter, so this makes a lot of sense. I feel like this would make as much sense if we didn't see Rousey and Susie's conflict build in chapter 3. So yeah,
segment I mentioned earlier, the knight creates a dark fountain inside the dark fountain we're already in, and we have been debating what would happen if you do this
that's
for
supposedly
forever.
supposed to
Would it
start the
just
roaring.
kickstart the roaring like that? Would it create a darker than dark world? What happens is the fountain becomes basically an egg. It develops a hard exterior and a titan starts to hatch from the inside of the fountain. And we're climbing this fountain as the titan is hatching from it. It's so fucking cool. It's
It
so
is
cool.
very
It's what a
cool. I
climax.
love
It's
this.
insane. And finally we fight the titan as the chapter 4 boss. And this is where I realized that there's no pattern we could expect from the future chapters with Deltarune. Because we thought fighting a titan would be in chapter 7. Maybe. We thought fighting a Titan would be endgame or possibly after endgame type shit. We're fighting a Titan in chapter 4. There's no bishop, there's no chess theory, even though this is the church. We're fighting a Titan. And what a cool battle. The music is insane. You're like killing its spawn as they're coming to get you. Rather, you're purifying them. And it seems like all hope is lost until Gerson returns. And fucking Gerson and
I love
Susie
this
do a
song.
dual buster together and they fucking. Oh god, it's such a good moment.
Also, the
The
scene where
music comes
Susie
in
and
with
Chris
Gerson's theme. They start working
jump into
together,
the
and then
Titan, that
Susie
was
decides to
iconic.
fucking slam dunk Chris into the Titan's face and purify it from the inside. What a climax. Holy shit. So cool. But it's not even over then. After the Titan is defeated, Susie runs forward looking for the old man. Ralsei doesn't get a chance to go before her because he's been trying to protect them from seeing the full prophecy this whole time. And then Susie sees the last panel of the prophecy, and we don't get to see it, but Susie shatters it with her hand, and her hand is bleeding. And Ralsei can do
Which is
nothing but
crazy. Like
apologize
she's
because of what she's
bleeding.
just seen. And Susie comforts Ralsei. Susie isn't succumbing to the despair herself. Susie puts her bloodied hand on Ralsei's face and tries to calm him down. What a moment. What an emotional moment
And
between
then
those two. Again,
when
Susie and
Rousey looks
Ralsei
up and you
grow
can
so
see
much
the
in
blood
Chapter 4.
like
They're my
actually
favorite
in
characters in the
Ralsei's
game now,
face,
to
like
be honest. And as Susie walks off screen and you talk to Ralsei, and you see revealed on the character portrait that there's blood on his face
exactly.
is so it's moving, it's profound,
It
it
is.
feels so significant, it feels vulnerable and imposing at once. And we get
You're
the
like taking all the right
fully
words.
honest
Like
truth from Ralsei that he's been trying to fight the prophecy this whole time, which I frankly thought the opposite of. I thought Ralsei was pro prophecy. He
fulfilling
says
it.
that
No.
he's hoped that if they were just nice enough that they could somehow change the ending of the prophecy, but that it seems to be coming no matter what. And we don't know what that is. Personally, there are a few routes I think it could take, and they all involve one or more of the Fun Gang dying. There's the idea that Susie would have to sacrifice herself, or that Ralsei would have to, or Chris. I think if the idea that Noelle creates the Angel's Heaven is true, I think there's the possibility that maybe they would have to kill Noelle, or maybe all three or all four of them have to die. It's unclear at the moment, but the text that reads on
I
screen.
think it has something to do with Rousey because when Susie says, especially you wouldn't let that happen, when like she's talking to Rousey, and it's like, okay, does that mean that Rousey has something to do with this last part of the prophecy? That's tragic. And because like Susie says specifically Rousey, like like you wouldn't like not talking to Chris, not talking to like no one or like everyone, talking to Rousey specifically. And I always thought that was super intriguing. So yeah.
When at the dark fountain right before you seal it, it's maybe my favorite few lines in the game. Susie's smile, which seemed to defeat everything, shined on in front of you, and for a moment it was as if all the darkness had been blown away. That moment, I think that moment cemented Susie as my favorite character in Deltarune. What a couple of lines. That was so affecting, and it really sets up the pieces for where the story's going from here. Because now we know that there's a prophecy. There are different allegiances working for different reasons, and we don't know them all, but we know that Susie and Ralse want to change the ending. And we finally know that Deltarune's one ending that we've talked about for so long. It's not just a meta element. It's not just a clarification for the Undertale fans that this game isn't going to have one ending. It's a problem that the characters in the
Have
game
to
themselves need to
solve.
face. I think that's such a good direction to start taking this story. I can't wait to see
It's an
where it goes
interesting
from here.
direction, I have to
Then
say.
when Chris and Susie leave the church at the end, the song that plays
I
is
feel like
called "The Place Where It."
the place where it rained, s- oh my camera. Sorry guys. Okay, there we go. Sorry guys. Anyway, as I was saying, I feel like Susie, like this whole scene was like defeat. Like that's how they, or not defeat, but like tiredness and like fatigue. That's what like it was giving, since they had this big fight.
Rained. It's raining somewhere else, but with Sans' theme removed from it. Just the
So
place
Sans is
where it
from
rained.
Deltarune.
And I think if anyone doubted that Sans Undertale is in fact Sans Deltarune, I think the writing is on the wall here. And after that emotional climax, after all the feelings that this game has been forcing you through, you get home and the jitterbug scene is happening.
That's
And
crazy.
let me be real with you, I was a bit I was so upset about this scene. I accidentally caused a Twitter discourse over it.
Oh
I
yeah, I
fear
remember
because
it.
I mean, so first of all, the Sorial of it all is great. You know, Sans and Toriel, great couple, very funny to see them dancing like that. I think my opinion of Toriel's parental skills went from 100 to 0 in that moment. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that like I hate Toriel now and Toriel's a bad person. But like the facts here are Toriel's child has been out since before the storm started. It is past 1 a.m. You know that from the soundtrack names. They have not communicated with you at all in all of this time. And you're home getting drunk with the grocery store man you met 2 days ago. Is that not insane? I feel like a lot of people are shrugging it off like, yeah,
I'm not shrugging it off. I don't think it's like criminal level, but like I feel like people's expectations are what's making this reaction so fierce. I feel like people thought Toriel was this great mother, and especially in Undertale, with like Toriel's reasoning for leaving Asgore, and like her moral high ground, but we always knew she was flawed. She wouldn't let like Frisk leave like for the longest time, and even after that said like she would not go with Frisk to protect them, and that they would have to do it themselves. Um, which is like interesting, but I feel like it's people's expectations that is making this reaction to seem so much worse. Um, I still like Toriel as a character. Really, okay, whatever, Chris like not being in. What made me so uncomfortable was the scene where Susie like saw Toriel like this, and it definitely reminded her of something. And that's where my uncomfortable like this came from, not Chris being out. Like, yeah, that's a bad thing to do. Like, she should like call Chris, and not be drunk and dancing with Sans. But I don't know. I feel like the implication that Susie has dealt with this before, but like worse. It was really saddening, I feel. And to know that like this person you just met that you thought was amazing mother figure isn't the greatest for Susie, I think is interesting. So yeah,
let a single mom have some fun. Whatever. Who cares? I don't care that she's dancing with Sans. She can dance with Sans and get drunk all she wants. The fact is, she has not communicated with her child, and she knows that there's a goddamn tire slasher on the loose in the
that's
neighborhood.
true. That is true.
It's jarring, and to the game's credit, I think it's supposed to be very jarring,
It's supposed to be
especially
jarring,
Susie
especially
reacting to
after.
the fact that Toriel's drunk and wanting to leave. I think that's pretty indicative of the kinds of problems she's facing at home. And I truly hope that the game addresses this moving forward, because I appreciate it. I like that Toriel's flaws are coming to the surface here, because she does feel like
Exactly.
sort of infallible at points. And the fact that she's done something this callous, I think, is really
Toby makes villain characters that aren't all evil. Like Flowey was super evil, but he wasn't. He was evil for a reason, you know. And even the best characters, they all have flaws, and I think that Toby's really good at making every single character like redeemable in some way. Yeah, literally redeemable. Like I don't know what else to say.
fascinating and a good step for her character. And then Chris goes to bed, and God, maybe this hit too close to home for me as like a kid whose family was often too loud when they were trying to go to bed, but when Sans and Toriel kept making noise while Chris was trying to go the fuck to sleep, I got mad. But it ends with Chris looking at Susie out the window, and with a voice coming from Chris's phone again saying that they promised. They promised something. What a cliffhanger. Is it the knight? Is it Carol? We really don't know. Are they the same? What did Chris promise? Chris's promise has to be what led them to make the fountain, but what's the goal here? Are they happy about what they're doing? So many questions. So many beautiful questions. So many new questions. So many old questions answered, and so many new questions that I can't wait to start thinking more in depth about. Next, I wanted to talk about the egg rooms, because the egg rooms these chapters are fucking bizarre.
I got the egg room
Especially chapter 3's. And this was another place
in
where my
chapter 3. Yeah, I did
expectations
that.
were just thrown out the window, because, honest to God, I thought the egg rooms would continue to be the exact same
Same
shit
thing with the
every chapter.
tree.
Just like a room between rooms and a tree and an egg, and that's it. But these two egg rooms offer so much more than that. First of all, let's talk about how to even get to the Chapter 3 egg room.
Which
So
is
all the way on
crazy
the
line of
left of the
steps.
map in Chapter 3, there's a little mini game where you have to switch X's to O's as Lancer. But there's just this random block sitting there, so you have to switch to Susie, who has the throwing ability, and then throw that block over the river on the right side of
One
the screen
specific
in the
spot.
game. But that's all you do there. Then later, on the far side of the
And
map
you
to
have to
the right, there's
backtrack.
this spotlight that leads to a treasure chest that has like
I
one
mean, are we
point in it.
surprised though? Snowgrave was kind of like this anyway. Even though this is definitely more specific, I feel like we should have come to expect this with Snowgrave or the Weird Route, so.
Or some shit. And it feels super out of place. So when you walk into this spotlight, a remote guy
I do have to
jumps
say, this
out
whole
and he
style
asks
is
where you were trying to
very out of
go.
left
And if you
field, but
enter nowhere, then he takes you to a place, I guess, called Nowhere, where there's another game to play. And this actually really frustrated me on my first playthrough, because I found Nowhere, but I had already beaten the Mantle side quest at that point. And
yeah,
once you do that, all
you
the
can't, you're
games
locked
get
out of
shut
it.
off and you can't play them anymore. But anyway, you play this game with a Bibliox, an enemy from Chapter 4, for some reason, and you're able to find the ticket that one of the Pippins is earlier on alludes to. You check this ticket in your inventory and it tells you to go left at the X or some shit. And then if you go find a Ribic enemy and get in a fight with it, I think
You
the blow all
you have to go
action, the one that
left
Ralsei helps you with, the
in the
way these things
menu.
normally work is like if there's an act you can do that is the same as a normal act, but it works on a whole group, it's blank X. But now the X in the name of this act is red, and you hold left here, and then you show
Yeah,
up at this Game Boy ass place. So
it was
right away, it's
crazy.
just fucking bizarre. I
It was hard to
understand
get
that the
through.
egg room in Chapter 1, it took some luck to stumble into for the first time, but once you know where it is, it's relatively simple. This one has you jumping through goddamn hoops. And you find yourself in this place called Man Country, where there are 6 tiny Rudens just hanging around, and they tell you that their backstory is they're the 7 flying aces, because apparently Chris, when they were a kid, they were bad at card games, so they copied 7 aces, or 6 aces, I guess. They
Seven
weren't good at
Knights?
counting, apparently. But they photocopied 7 aces to win at cards. And apparently they're all different colors because Chris
They're all
colored them
different
in.
knights?
Interesting that there are no green ones now that I think about it, considering the whole green crayon
Yeah,
thing.
with
But they
Ralsei.
say that that copies are naturally gray, but Chris colored them in. And that definitely makes my mind wander to Goners. I've been thinking about Goners a lot lately because of the Ralsei video and saying that copies are gray, but you can color them in. That's kind of, it does something, you know? But anyways, after walking around this place, when you go up, you finally get to the tree for this chapter, and the Eggman finally has a name. I mean, it's not a name per se, but we can call him something other than Eggman. He is the Forgotten Man. And all of a sudden, we know so
He's
much
still a
more
man.
than we did
He's
about the
always been a
Eggman,
man.
and it still feels
And we
like
know
we
it's
know
not
nothing.
Gaster.
So apparently, the Forgotten Man has been trying to contact Chris about something, and it seems like momentarily meeting him in each chapter and getting an egg from him is his way of communicating with you. But here in the Forgotten Land, or Man Country, or whatever it's called, this is the only
Or
place
whatever
he
the
can
fuck,
talk.
like...
This place that I guess is between the couch cushions. And he gives you these cryptic hints on where else to find the eggs in the other chapters, and he hopes to see Chris again. Oh, and it seems like the Forgotten Man is the person who wrote the mysterious Valentine's letter. And I gotta take the L on this one.
That's
I
true.
really thought it was Gaster, and people
Gaster.
just didn't want to let Gaster be a little silly. But the way he talks, beyond a shadow of a doubt, I think indicates that the letter was from him, and that he somehow is aware of the program Deltarune.
I feel like us as Deltarune theorists just need to like actually calm down about everything being connected to a character that's already been pre-existing, you know what I mean? I feel like there's lots of different things where like it's just a new character, even if they're not that important, you know what I mean? Like I don't know, like Mike, like we thought he was an important figure, and we did think it was like he was his own character, but like we thought like he was going to be so important, and like the whole thing with Mike was that like we don't know who Mike is, you know. But yeah, let's dive back in.
Not the religious symbol in universe, but the program itself. And then in chapter 4.
I
This
didn't
one is
go
a
to
lot
this
less
one.
complicated to get to. You just have to. It's another back and forth between two
I really
rooms,
don't
but
know what
this room
happens
is
in this room.
considerably more hidden than the other rooms, I feel. But when you go in, it sees Chris entering what seems like a hospital setting. And there's another one of these tiny Rudins there at the desk, once again referring to itself as a copy. And they can go into this room, and it's completely black, but there's shit to check on and talk to in the room. And it seems like this is art therapy. This was foreshadowed in the Spamton Sweepstakes too, but seeing the full context now, it definitely seems like Chris experienced something traumatic in their
And they had
childhood
to go
and they had to
to
go to art
therapy.
therapy for it.
Yeah.
Something in particular that really caught my attention is that
I'm
you
guessing
talk
it
to an
was
NPC
the
in
shelter.
this black room and they say, "Welcome to Welcome to Art Club, where we draw and don't kill each
Kill each
other."
other.
And that
Yeah.
line about not killing each other has me really thinking. Because the implication of this room is that Chris saw
Chris
something
is
behind a tree, and they're trying to draw it, but they just can't get themselves to do it. And they draw and draw and draw, and the thing they end up drawing is just a gray smudge, but then they end up painting a tree
I
over it.
don't know
So there's
why, but Noelle and Chris, or not Noelle, Des and Chris, they definitely have a connection, I feel, and I feel like Des and Chris is kind of giving Basil and Sunny from Omori if you've played that game, and I feel like something is amiss and there's a situation that we don't know about. And I feel like this is why Chris feels indebted to the mayor to, go along with finding Des because they know what happened and they know what truly happened and they feel like if they don't do this, they won't have any other way to like repent for what they did. Because I think something happened. I don't know what, but yeah.
There's a lot to connect here about, the bunker, lost where the forest would grow, the kids followed the pointed tail. But this detail, where the NPC says, "We don't kill each other here," is really sticking with me because to me, it feels like it indicates that Chris had some sort of violent episode as a child, or maybe violent tendencies in general. Especially because Aram in chapter 3 make a comment about how the knife grows dull without play and how Chris is secretly enjoying the things we're making them do on the weird route. Oh, and I haven't even talked about the weird route yet, that'll be next. But it would seem that the Forgotten Man is trying to help Chris remember something that
I
happened
definitely
in
feel
their
like
childhood.
ERAM was antagonizing them in more of a belittling way. Like they try to act like, they're on Chris's side, but they're just like, making poking fun at them. Not in the poking fun at them harshly, you know what I mean? And I feel like Chris doesn't like that. but they are acknowledging that they have been violent in the past.
Childhood. And I think there's
But that
more
this isn't
theory to be
connected
crafted
to
around
what
this
we're
whole
making them do
subject, but
now.
that's all I got for now. It is so strange. It's so exciting that it's so strange. And now let's talk about the weird route. There are a lot of small
Yeah, it's
changes
crazy.
across the game, and I'm not confident that I know them all right now, but the big change happens in Chapter
Chapter
4
4,
in the
yeah,
Holiday House segment, and
it's crazy.
it's disturbing. It is frankly
My game has
it's
crashed
strange because
twice
it doesn't
on
have as
this.
much of a profound effect
It's
on the
crazy.
events of the chapter as it does in chapter
This
2,
scene has
but I'd
something
argue it's even
about
more
it.
horrifying. You get this scene where when Chris gets off the couch to go look for the code in Noelle's house, Noelle actually ends up following them because she wants to talk to them privately. And so they go into Noelle's room and sit on the couch together while again the soul is discarded and trapped in the vents. But Noelle starts
Yeah,
talking to Chris about this thing that happened last night, apparently, where overnight Chris showed up at their house, independent of our control, of course, and apologized to her and told her it was all just a joke, that they're sorry for taking her watch and that Birdley's going.
this gives me like we know Chris can. There's things off screen that Chris does, but I'm like, why if we can control them in the game and like, but when we see them go to sleep, why do we not have control over them when they wake back up or they pretend they wake back up? I don't get the control over Chris and the extent we have over. I feel like it's not just we control Chris because if we controlled Chris fully, they could saying that they can still take their soul out. Um, that we would be able to see all of these moments, right? And it would be in game. But the fact that we don't gives me the feeling that Gaster kind of made Deltarune with, or maybe not made Deltarune, but altered Deltarune in such a way that we can only there's like a specific time frame or like a specific thing set of things that like happens during a day where we're allowed to control Chris. Like the other times, like our control is halted and it like instantly jumps to the next day or something. Um, because the dynamics around it are super confusing. Also, yeah, that was my notification. Sorry. But yeah, let's dive back in.
To get better. And Noelle says that Chris spoke to her in their normal voice for the first time in a while. And that paints such a heartbreaking picture
It is
for Chris's
heartbreaking.
reaction to the weird route when we can't see them. That they did everything they could to correct what happened. But then Noelle asks Chris if she can talk about something else. And we're given the choice, please don't or proceed. And by clicking proceed, because your soul is in the menu, on the bottom of the screen. When you click proceed, then it is now out of the vent and back in the room with Noelle and Chris. And here's where the weird romantic
It's crazy.
implications of the weird route especially start coming into play. Noelle's eyes are closed and she starts inching closer to Chris on the couch as she talks about something else that happened last night, how they took her hand and they pulled a thorn out of her finger. And I think part of why Noelle's eyes are closed are for the sake of convenience, so she can't see as you pilot the soul back into Chris's body, but
Yeah.
it's hard not to read as if there's sort of a romantic moment she's trying to manufacture between them. And when she gets really close, she mentions that Chris last night told her not to mention that
And
they
I feel like Toby's doing something by this, and I don't know what he's trying to do, but multiple playthroughs I've seen of people playing through this scene, they definitely have gotten romantic undertones like 50% of the time, at least 50%.
they did any of this. And Chris starts to freak out and tries to cover her mouth because they
We're
know that we're
listening.
listening to the conversation and
Yeah.
we're not supposed to know that Chris did all this last night. But Noelle keeps talking and she asks who Chris thinks is listening. And finally, you get the option to respond with me. And then the fucking scene, like the room is tinted a different color and Chris's hair blows back and the tables are turned all of a sudden because now Noelle is backing away from Chris on the couch and Chris is inching toward her as she realizes that now she's hearing the same voice that she was hearing from them during the weird route. And
In the
I
dark
just want to
world.
put a quick content warning out there right now. I'm very briefly gonna
This has to do with probably like the things that happened surrounding the rose change to the soul like branching out and the soul being just like a little dot. So this is like, topics about SA probably. So just skip to that time if you're uncomfortable with it. But yeah, If you're comfortable with that, let's keep watching.
Discuss themes of sexual assault. So if you're not into that, then just go ahead and skip to the time code on screen. But as Chris is inching closer to her on the couch, we can hear Noelle's thoughts just like we could in the weird route, and we're able to respond out loud to them. And she starts thinking, well, if you can hear me say this, and you say that, and you tell her that everything that happened was
Just
real. And then
real.
finally, when Chris has
Yeah.
cornered her on the other side of the couch, they take the thorn out, which Noelle recognizes as the thorn ring, and they stick it back into her finger. And as this happens, the screen goes black, and some really interesting imagery happens on screen. When the game first came out, a rose appeared on screen, and the petals started to fall off. And to a lot of the fan base, and honestly to me, this does read as a metaphor for sexual assault or otherwise some sort of invasion of Noelle's boundaries or the loss of her innocence.
Yeah. It was changed. But on the PS5 and like console things, I don't think it's been changed yet. It might have, and like maybe I didn't update mine. But I played it yesterday and it was still the rose, but it's definitely changed. So it's probably just taking a little bit of time to do that.
But a few days later, the visual was then changed. So instead of the rose with the petals falling off, now there's
Like
this sort of
crack,
red glass
branching.
shattering effect
Yeah.
across the screen. Both are very powerful in different ways, I think. But I can't help but think there was some intent to the original imagery. If I had to guess why it was changed, I think a lot of people
The
were
fan base.
interpreting it as literal sexual assault happening, and I don't think that was true of the scene. But I think that the insinuation was pretty clear. I mean, especially with, again, Snowgrave is thematically it has a lot to do with forcing Chris and Noelle, regardless of their queer identities, into like a heteronormative relationship with each other. So having Chris approach Noelle on the couch and then forcibly penetrate her with a sharp object, along with the rose visual, I think it was a very intentional like deflowering metaphor. But again, I don't think that that's literally what happened. I think that it was more a symbol of how horribly Noelle has been violated and her loss of innocence and all that. I don't think it was literal sexual assault. But either way, I think that the new visual is also very affecting in a similar way. So it's similarly dark, but without the potential for misinterpretation. What a scary scene. It was very affecting to me when I first played it. It's very uncomfortable, and it's interesting because I think the fandom had a few interpretations of how the weird route would continue to play out. I think like the more casual side of the fandom assumed that we would continue to find ways to be killing people. Like there was this popular theory that instead of using Noelle to freeze enemies in Chapter 3, Toriel would be our partner, and then we'd be using her to kill people with fire or something like that. And then there was also this more deep into the fandom interpretation that, you know, Noelle is, because of her history with breaking games and finding glitches and whatnot, she was sort of our vessel to find ways to break the game and therefore
Yeah.
break away from the prophecy. And I still think there's a good chance that finding a way to subvert the prophecy is the purpose of the weird route, but it's not so much focused on Noelle's ability to break the game or find secrets. It's just about
As
this
Noelle.
horrible control we're exerting over Noelle. And that's made especially clear in a few other scenes later on in the route. In the scene in Chapter 4 where Rolse asks Chris to close their eyes
And
and
you
think
can
about
pick
Susie, if you
Noelle.
choose to think about Noelle instead, you just see this red pixel slowly moving around on the screen, almost like it's breathing, and it just says thank you. And then at the end of the game, when Chris is lying in bed, they get another phone call, and it's from Carol, and she says that Noelle is excited to see them at the festival tomorrow. So it seems like at this
Yeah, this is going to say back earlier in the video. I think that we might have the possibility to go with Noelle on the weird route, and then
point in the
shenanigans
route,
will
we've
happen.
completely taken Noelle's agency away. It seems like she's just a vessel for whatever purpose we're working toward at this point. I've also heard some theories that the red pixel is supposed to represent a growing red soul inside of Noelle, so that maybe one day we'll be able to control her. It's all very unclear at the moment, but it's harrowing. It's harrowing stuff. And the call from Carol also calls into question, why doesn't this phone call come across the same way as the phone calls Chris was getting in the holiday house?
It's
When we're spying on
interesting.
Chris, you see this little speech bubble coming from the phone, and you
This
hear
one
the
is
words
definitely
broken
Carol if
up.
the other one
Meanwhile,
one.
at the end of the game,
This
you're
one
in the
definitely
cage,
is.
you're still separate from Chris, but the phone call that they get is in a normal text box. So are we supposed to assume that the person Chris was talking to on the phone is different from Carol for this reason, or not? So the last thing I
It's
wanted to touch on here
very
is where I
confusing.
think my theories stand in the current Deltarune theory meta.
Sphere,
I'll be the first to say it. Well, I guess I'm not the first to say it. The comment sections for my videos have become extremely toxic since the chapters came out. But
Oh no.
Seven Nights is in fact dead in the water. There's no saving it. Seven Nights is over party. That being said, there are still things
Yikes.
that I predicted in Seven Nights and Burger Pants Conspiracy that came true or
I
still
don't
have the
think it was
potential
for
to come
nothing
true.
though.
But the
I
basis of the
enjoyed it a
theory that
lot.
Knight is a title and that there is no central knight to be the antagonist, that's wrong. I mean, we've met the Roaring Knight. They're scary as hell. But so far, it seems like the predictions for the Dark Worlds are holding up. Obviously, the church was a no-brainer, but I did predict that Susie made a Dark World in the church, even if just barely
You did.
technically correct. But it's also looking like Asgore is going to be a major player in the next chapter, and the Dark World's going to be in Flower King. So I think
it will.
that counts as a point for me. Also, like I mentioned before, my theory about the knight silhouette being obvious because of their horns came correct, even if not in the way I thought it would. I also think that my theory that Noelle will be the quote-unquote angel that opens the angel's heaven as a Dark World is still pretty likely. There is a lot of evidence in these new chapters that point toward player angel more so than Noelle angel, but Noelle's associations with the angel have not gone away, and I think it's very possible that there doesn't have to be just one angel. Thinking back to Undertale, even now we don't really know exactly who the angel in the prophecy was, right? Depending on your interpretation, you could say it was Frisk, or Kara, or Azrael, or even the player in that case. So even if the player is the angel, I don't doubt that Noelle could still take on a symbolically representative angel
Of
role. Perhaps
Angel
it would
in
be
the weird
different
room.
depending on the route, or maybe they both
I
are.
don't know.
Especially with the revelation that dark fountains can be used to revive loved ones. I think that Noelle making a fountain to revive Rudy near the end of the story is very, very likely. We also have the fact that multiple people are confirmed to be opening Dark Worlds in this story. Like I said before, Susie did it, but Chris and the Knight seem to be on the same team, and they're both opening fountains for the same reason, so it's always possible they're now working alone. And Tenna has this really confusing dialogue where, toward the end of the chapter, when you play it without doing the Mantle side quest, Tenna mentions that the Roaring Knight would get people to watch him if he just kept the heroes busy for a while. But when you do the Mantle side quest, there's also a bit where Tenna is pleading with Chris not to kill him because he did everything
that was
they
crazy.
asked him to do. So that calls into attention if Chris is somehow also going by the Roaring Knight, or if they were just acting as a messenger of the Knight. But overall, it was
Very
nice while
confusing.
it lasted, but Seven Nights...
Seven Nights series is
dead.
dead.
You making me a YouTube micro-celebrity, but we're over. Meanwhile, though, I've been getting just as many people commenting on the Ralsei theory saying it's dead, but I honestly don't think so. I mean, of course,
I don't think it is.
We have to acknowledge the fact that Ralsei immediately comes out and says that he's a Darkner, but that is really the only evidence against the theory that the new chapters supply. The reasons why I propose that Ralsei can be at least a normal Darkner still do apply, and all the reasons why he can be a Goner are still there as well. The thing we have to reckon with, though, is if Ralsei is a Goner, why would he say that? And there are three possibilities, I think, at least in my mind. Number one is that he's just lying. I put a lot of emphasis on Ralsei lying through a mission rather than lying through explicit falsehoods in the theory, and so this explanation is my least favorite, but I just want to include it for completion's sake. Ralsei does confirm himself that he is lying through a mission a lot in Chapter 4, and I think that his conflicted emotions about being a Darkner do seem genuine. So I don't think he's lying about being a Darkner, but I don't want to completely write it off. But the second option,
I think he's some kind of Darkner,
is the idea that maybe Ralsei doesn't know what he truly is. Maybe after being created by Gaster, he was like a regular Darkner, so he doesn't know the true nature of what he is. I do think that could be interesting for his character later on, but we also do have to reckon with the fact that a lot of Darkners tend to know what real-world object they are. For example, Queen knows she's a computer, Ram knows he's a power strip. So if Ralsei was the only Darkner who didn't know what object he was based on, that would be a little confusing. But that brings me to the third point, and the one I think is most likely. Something that I failed to consider is that maybe a Goner could just be a different type of Darkner. just like a special kind of Darkner.
Interesting.
So even though he technically is a Darkner, him not specifying that he's a Goner is once again an
Well,
act
we
of
know that
lying through
Darkners can
omission,
only
not going
exist
into
in the Dark
explicit
World,
detail
so
on the true nature of what he is, which makes it feel the most likely to me. And
I still think it's
the Goner
connected to
being a
Gaster,
special
though.
type of Darkner could actually work out in a few cool ways. For example, maybe the difference between a colored and a non-colored Goner is whether it's in a Dark World or not, right? Like, say, a Goner in the Light World is just an empty gray vessel that's not alive, but then putting it in a Dark World makes it come to life and gain color. I think that could be
Okay,
pretty
interesting.
But,
That is interesting.
also
I see
the
your point
last
now.
segment of the Ralsei video that's completely tied to Seven Knights, that's just out of the window,
Yeah,
which is a bummer. I was
not
very
true.
happy with the way that last segment hit, but oh well, you can't win them all.
It's still a
And
good
that's all I
video.
have to say in the new chapters, I guess. I really can't overstate how much I
Wow.
loved them, and I love being a fan of Toby
What a
Fox
great
and
video,
Deltarune.
Cammy.
Being in this fandom, it's just been a blast. All the discussion and new theories and whatnot. I can't wait to see where things go from here. As for my channel, at the end of the last video, I talked about how my next theory would have been the theory that connects Gaster and Des, and also Deltarune and Undertale, and that I would have to reevaluate where that theory holds up in the
After chapter 3 and 4.
chapters come out. My thoughts on Deltarune and Undertale's relationship remain untouched, I think. I don't think any major dents were put in that theory by the new chapters, but obviously there's
We
a
got
lot
more info about
to
Des
consider
and
regarding
even
Des
Gaster.
nowadays. I'm not
kind of.
completely sure if the Gaster and Des portion of the theory is broken, but it does need to be rethought. So I'm not sure right now if I'm going to split the Gaster, Des, and Undertale Deltarune theories into 2 videos, or if I still find a way to sort of make them this one cohesive thing. The title that I actually settled on for that combination of theories is Unrelated, with a question mark, because Unrelated is an anagram of Undertale and Deltarune, so I thought it was kind of clever. So hopefully
I like
the
that.
Unrelated theory
That's cool.
Will still come out originally how I intended it, but before that happens, because I'm going to have to do a lot more thinking on it now, there are going to be a few more videos on this channel that aren't the regular theory fare. Next up is going to be another collab with me and Snarlinger. This time we're going to be ranking dead theories that were put to death by chapter 3 and 4 coming out. And then after that, I actually have a character analysis video that I really want to make. I won't say what character it is now, but it's going to be shorter than the average theory video, but hopefully close to the regular production quality of a theory video. So look forward to that. And then after that comes out, I think I'm going to start working on Unrelated.
I do like that Ralsei
Thank
theory,
you
though.
so
It's
much
good.
for listening if you got this far, and now I have some Patreon shoutouts to do. And good God, there are way more of you than last time.
Wow, this was a great video, cammyboiG. I think that you discussed and touched on everything. But yeah, we're entering a new phase in the Deltarune fandom, and I think that we need to realize that this is not Deltarune is nowhere near formulaic at all. So that was the video. Thanks for watching, guys. And I hope that you have an amazing day. Bye, YouTube.